In this video, we're discussing parallel and perpendicular lines. We'll start with parallel lines. Two lines that have the same slope are parallel. So if we can find the slope of both the lines, we can determine if they're parallel. So let's try that for this example. So I want you to try to find the slope for each one of these lines, and then I want you to decide if you think they are parallel. I just want to point out that the points didn't come out very well in my document. So, for example, this here is point 3, -2. This point is -2, 4, -4, 1, and 1, -5. So use those points, find the slope of each line, and determine if they're parallel. Pause the video, please, and try that. So you should have found the slopes of both these lines. You'll notice I labeled this one line 1, and then the first slope I called it A1. So this is the slope of the first line. Here's my work, -2 minus 4 divided by 3 minus -2. I get -6/5. Slope of line 2, this is line 2, this is my slope 2. Here's the work to find the slope, and I also get -6/5. Remember, these fractions, this just means that the whole fraction is negative. So it could have been -6 over +5, or it could have been 6 over -5. Those all represent the same thing. So since these two lines have the same slope, we can say they are parallel. Now let's look at what it means for lines to be perpendicular. When lines are perpendicular, we're talking about two lines that cross at a 90-degree angle. So they can be arranged like that, they can be arranged like this, like your axes. They cross and meet at a 90-degree angle. So they're perpendicular. And when lines are perpendicular, we can look at their slopes to determine they're perpendicular. And the slopes are not the same now, that's for parallel lines. Now the slopes are negative reciprocals of one another. And what that means is that they have different signs. So the negative means different signs, and reciprocal means flipping the fraction. So for example here, if the slope is A over B, then the negative reciprocal of that would be, we flip the fraction, B over A, and we change the sign of the fraction. So the slope was positive, now the slope will be negative. So if I look at these two examples, if I have a slope of 3 over 2, to find the negative reciprocal of this, well, we flip the fraction, we change the sign. So it was 3 over 2, now it's, whoops, I need my pen, now it's 2 over 3, and we change the sign, so the slope is negative. In this next example, we have a slope of -2. Find the negative reciprocal. Well, -2, that's like saying -2 over 1. So I flip that fraction, becomes 1 over 2, and I change the sign. Well, since it was negative, now the slope is positive. So let's take a look at this next example down here. Determine the slope of each line and check to see if the lines are perpendicular. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video here and please find the slope of each line. I'm going to label this as line 1 and this is line 2. So pause the video please and find the slopes, and then we'll discuss if they're perpendicular. So hopefully you found the slopes. Hopefully you got the same thing as I did. So for line 1, here's the work. I ended up getting 2 over -1. For line 2, we get a slope of 1/2. Are these two negative reciprocals of one another? Well, if we start here, to find the negative reciprocal of this, we flip the fraction, so it becomes 1/2, and we change the sign. Well, since my slope was negative, now it's positive. So they are negative reciprocals. Negative reciprocals. I'll just write it shorthand. Now, there's another way that you can check if they are negative reciprocals. So if negative reciprocals, please write this down in your notes, then the slope of one times the slope of the other should give you -1. Always, always, always. If they're negative reciprocals, multiply the two slopes together, it'll give you -1. So if I try it for this example, I have 2 over -1 times 1/2. So I multiply the tops together, 2 times 1 is 2. Bottoms together, -1 times 2 is -2, and that simplifies to -1. So it works. They are negative reciprocals of one another. Now we'll try a couple examples. So first example, determine the equation of the line that is parallel to the line y equals 3x plus 2 and passes through the point 5, 1. So remember, to find the equation of the line, I always start with y equals ax plus b. I want to replace a with the slope and b with the y-intercept. So those letters need to be replaced by numbers. I'm going to start with the slope. Since the lines are parallel, that means they have the same slope. So I look at this line. Well, its slope is 3. That means the slope for my new line will also be 3. Now I need to determine what the y-intercept will be. Well, I do the same thing we've been doing for finding the equation of the line before. We substitute in this point. I have my x is 5 and my y is 1. I put that into the rule. 1 equals 3 times 5 plus b. I do the multiplication. 3 times 5 is 15. And then to isolate b, I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. So I get b equals -14. Now I can write the rule. My new line, its equation is 3x minus 14. So, and if I go back and look, I can see, I look at my two lines, they have the same slope. So I know they're parallel and they have different y-intercepts. So they are definitely different lines. Now we'll try another example. This time we'll use perpendicular lines. So determine the equation of a line that is perpendicular to y equals 3x plus 2 and passes through the point -1, 4. So now, if the line is perpendicular, well, I need to start by finding the slope of the line I'm starting with. So this slope here is 3. But if they're perpendicular, I need to find the negative reciprocal of 3. Well, this is like saying 3 over 1. So the reciprocal of that is 1 over 3. And we change the sign. It's negative. So that is the slope of my new line. I'll write that in. Y equals -1 over 3x plus b. And then I substitute the point in. X is -1 and y is 4 to find the b. So 4 equals -1 over 3 times -1 plus b. -1/3 times -1 gives us a +1/3 plus b. And to isolate b, I subtract 1/3 from both sides. So I end up with 4 minus 1/3. Well, 4 minus 1/3, you could do this as a decimal if you'd like. You can leave it as a fraction as well using a common denominator. And we get b is 11 over 3. So now all I have to do is write the equation of the line. Y equals -1 over 3x plus 11 over 3. Now I'd like you to write down the secret question that I've just included here. So I want you to find the equation of the line perpendicular to the line y equals 1/2 x minus 1 and passes through the point 0, 5. Write this down and please solve it, showing all your work. I'm going to ask you to show it to me in our next class.